instances where we might have an automatic thought or belief. And this automatic thought and belief is based on the way we feel, the way that we perceive, the way that we assume things are. It's not based on facts. It's not based on certainty. Yet we might struggle to know the real truth, the certainty of it. And our brain might contemplate the same and the reasons why, and we might struggle. For instance, on a more severe and extreme example, say if we did grow up, were raised by a parent that mistreated us physically, emotionally. There was some form of abuse at times or often. Now, if this topic is triggering for you, physical, emotional abuse, then perhaps it's best that you do not watch the video. And if you are struggling with that, then I strongly recommend that you seek support from a health professional so you can be fully supported. If you think that you are okay, then you can watch the video. I'll leave it in your hands. This is not professional expertise. This is just different perspectives of looking at something. The help is on the way. For instance, a voice in our heads could come to us and try to understand and justify perhaps the reasons why someone might have behaved in a similar way or in a pattern of ways. Perhaps we might have gone through a period in our life where we just don't think about it. Don't try to understand or justify or comprehend. We sort of block. Don't think about it, don't share about it, as a way of unconsciously, we don't know this, but we don't think, we don't share, we don't experience, we don't comment. And that is, we don't know why we do this, but one of the reasons we do this is to protect us from feeling all the feelings that normally we would feel if we were to open that window, if we were to express our real feelings. So just block out. Don't see, don't hear, don't feel, don't think. But then there are moments in our lives where we have similar encounters with someone. For instance, if you go from parent to child and you've experienced that as a child, and then you become an adult and now you have a child yourself, and being a parent again then highlights some of the struggles that we might have faced when we're growing up as children. For instance, one struggle might be you might feel love and affection towards your child, which is positive, but then on the other hand highlights, why was my parent not loving and affectionate, or why was my parent so cruel and so mean? And then you try to understand, I would never do this, why would someone do this to me? So as an adult, parent of a child, it might just bring home some unfairness, some uncertainty, some hurt, some struggle. And then our brain, one part of our brain, tries to ignore, and another part of our brain tries to understand and try to find a solution. And another part makes us feel, no, this is not right, and tries to put it right so that we can archive it, so that we can become at peace. And then different explanations might run through our head, depending on our upbringing, depending on our experiences, depending the way we view the world and the way we feel. When we're feeling more vulnerable, more stressed, more low in energy, perhaps more depressed, and we are not having quality interactions with others, and we are feeling a little bit more lonely and isolated, perhaps those thoughts and memories might trigger for instance, this parent or my parent did not love me, or does not love me, and you think, why doesn't my parent love me? Because we have this assumption that a parent will always love the child. And if the parent does not love the child, meaning does not love me, then there must be something. And sometimes we tend to focus on, is because of me, there's something wrong with me, I am not lovable, I am faulty, that's why my parent could not love me. Or there's something, I am weak, I am not perfect, and that's why my parent does not love me. That could be one way of thinking and interpreting that hate. And when we think this way, my parent does not love me or did not love me or mistreated me because I was wrong, because I was weak, because I was unlovable, that makes us feel unworthy of love, makes us feel sad, makes us feel that we don't have any value and worth. And then we don't believe in ourselves because we feel if our own parent did not see our worth and value, and the parent should have the best interests for us, what are the chances that someone else's will? And what are the chances, if our parent doesn't see our worth and value, what are the chances that I would see my worth and value? And this is an option that we can consciously or unconsciously follow. My parent did not love me, or does not love me because I'm not perfect. Perfect in the way that I behave, perfect in the way that I am, perfect in the way that I feel. And then I would only feel sad. That's one example. Worthless, unvalued, low mood, depressed. And then perhaps we would end up spending our life looking for approval from others instead of validating ourselves, instead of seeing our worth. We look for others for approval and love. And then when others show love and approval, we feel good. But then the minute they turn their attention somewhere else, the minute they are disconnected, then we feel insecure, then we feel anxious, and we think, is there something wrong with me? What have I done? Am I not lovable? Or the minute that we behave in a way that is not as good, as positive and bright, we automatically feel, this person doesn't love me, only loves me on my light, on my brightness, on my good, but does not love me when I lose my balance, when I lose my feet, when I'm dark, when I don't feel good about myself. And when we seek that approval and validation, yes, it does feel good to receive approval and validation from others. But others are not always connected, like we are not always connected. They don't always feel good like we don't always feel good. And then we feel like a yo-yo. Someone gives us love and approval and we rise up. they turn their attention away because they have different priorities, needs, interests, likes, their own struggles, and then with him, and then they go back to feeling insecure. If others starts distancing themselves, we feel insecure and worry that we're going to lose that love and attention and approval, and once again be deserted and abandoned. And that pain of feeling deserted and abandoned is hard and painful. We anxiously try to seek, to check, to not wanting to let go, because we know that it feels painful to be abandoned. And perhaps when we are young, being abandoned means that we would not be able to survive. So we are programmed to belong. But as an adult, we can make different choices, and we don't have to be dependent on one sole person for our survival. And in fact, we can give ourselves love and approval. Another way that we might look at our parents and try to justify those behaviors. It would be, one possible explanation would be, let's take a breath while the light comes in. Breathe in. Breathe out. Another possible explanation would be, my parent hates me because, say for instance, if you're the first child, because they had sex, I was born accidentally, and now for instance, my father decided to stay in the relationship. Sorry, the light is just... My father decided to stay in the relationship because my mother was pregnant. And that's why he hates me. Because that ruined his life, his relationships. And that's why he blames me for everything. Now, let's think for a moment. When we feel that, let me adjust it. When we feel that someone blames us and hates us because we are to blame, that makes us feel, in one hand, anger for the unfairness, sadness because we didn't have a choice in the matter, disappointment and hurt. And those feelings are heavy and intense. When we feel wrongly accused or when we don't have a say in the matter, it's very painful. We can understand when we contribute deliberately towards something, when we are at fault, we can understand a little. But when it's something beyond our control, it feels incredibly unfair, and that only evokes sadness, hurt. But then our emotional side, one part of us might feel, it's not my fault. But then the rational part of us could look at it. Yes, there's a possibility where that could happen. But there are instances where one can assume that the partner is known or discovered or came to terms and accepted and saw the relationship and the pregnancy as a blessing. and actually turn out to be a blessing, and they turn out to like the child. Might have been a rough start, might have been something unwanted, might have triggered anger and rejection, pushing away and not wanting, but in time that parent might have learned to work through those anger feelings and accepting and starting seeing the value and the good and the positives and the silver lining of having the child. And while it might have been difficult for a while, that parent could see the child as a blessing after a period of time. And then that can lead us to, there's no excuses for a parent to hate us, because they can work through their stuff. But equally, we have stuff ourselves where we struggle to work through. We struggle to work through those feelings of hate and resentment and see a different perspective, see a lighter perspective, see the good, the opportunities, the silver lining. We're just considering different ways of interpreting why someone might have mistreated us, or mistreat us, or hate us. In this instance, and this example, a parent-child. And way of identifying feelings that we might experience when we look at things from different angles. And then finding a broader perspective. Close your eyes for a moment. Close one nostril and exhale. Close the other nostril and exhale. Take a full breath into the belly. And slowly out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Another way we could think, why did my parent hate me or hates me, mistreated me? And we could look at it as my father, for instance, blamed me for all the problems and the way he felt. Again, that can elicit anger, sadness, unfairness, the feeling of being a victim. But let's look at it rationally. Yes, there's a strong possibility that we might have contributed with our behaviors. Doing something, not doing something, saying something, not saying something. And yes, at times we do contribute towards someone feeling less than good. We might hurt, we might disappoint. But we are never responsible for someone else's feelings. Each individual is responsible for the way they feel, the way they perceive, the way they respond. And while we might contribute, we're never fully responsible for someone else's struggle and suffering and life experience. Because life is more than just one interaction. Just take a moment to breathe while this light comes in. Breathe in. Breathe out. Feel the belly. Breathe out. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. exhale. Find peace and calm. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. So, we might feel that we were to blame or we are to blame, and we can take two stances. Number one is the victim and think it's all my fault. I am to blame because I've said or did this or that or the other that I've hurt and disappointed, or I was born. Or we can become aggressive and attack back. How dare you blame me? You're responsible for your things. But then we can find a more balanced approach, which is we recognize that yes, as human beings there are moments that we contribute towards someone else's struggle and suffering. By the way we behave, don't behave, say or do. That is true. However, each individual is responsible to themselves, to the way where I'm responsible to the way that I feel, to the way that I respond. I'm responsible for my feelings, and someone else is responsible for the way they perceive, respond, react, and the way they feel. I am responsible for managing. I might not know that as a child or have the resources available, and one hopes that we'll have a parent to show us that. However, every child is different. Different genes, different temperaments, different time in history. And we're just blindly trying to lead each other. We have our own struggles, our own hurts, our own deficiencies, our own weakness, and then we try to coach and guide when we don't actually know ourselves when we are a parent. So we just muddle through. We don't have the experience, the knowledge. We don't have our own heals, our own wounds healed. And then we try to muddle through. We try to do the best we can. And often we get it wrong, and sometimes we get it right. And from a place of responsibility. One person is never fully responsible for everything. Often it's a combination of different contributions. We all bring something to the equation. We also have external contributions. So when there is a problem, there are many contributions from all the people that are present, from the people outside, from the circumstances, and the bigger, broader. Even the culture, the economy. So there are many contributing factors that can help or hinder or contribute towards frustration, stress, hurt, disappointment. So one person cannot be fully to blame. So we can look at it as I might have contributed, but I'm not fully responsible for all the struggle and suffering that I might have caused or someone else's. There are many things that contributed towards the way someone feels. Me, them, others, circumstances, even era and cultural background. Just take a moment to breathe in. Notice the breath. Notice the belly rising and falling. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. There are other ways we could look at it, why a parent might have hated or haters. Perhaps with their struggle or their addiction to substances such as alcohol or drugs. And we could go down and feel anger that the parent, why didn't the parent stop? Why does the parent engage in those behaviors? Because when they engage in those behaviors, it gets the worst out of them. And then they become out of control and do mean and horrible and hurtful things that one would describe as being monsters. And we might feel anger and hurt and sadness and worried and concerned, and even could blame them for not having the courage to stop. But you can also look at it as in when people struggle with a substance abuse, is often an addiction, and often they are trying to numb the way they feel. They're trying to feel better in some way, and that's the way they know. In the moment, they have so much momentum and struggle. They're trying to feel better, they're trying to survive. And while they want to overcome the substance abuse, when they struggle and they want to end it all, and they want to end that struggle and painful feelings, they don't know any other way. They don't have any other coping mechanisms in the moment. They're doing the best they can, the way they know. Unfortunately, it's a solution that helps feel better in a moment, but then it creates more problems. And they often end up, even though they might not admit or speak about it, it's very likely they will feel guilt or shame. And then they might end up taking the substance again to cope with those feelings of shame. And one could say, if the person only stopped taking the drugs or the alcohol, the problems would stop. And that seems like a solution. However, it is a simplistic solution. Because if the person struggles so much to manage their feelings, and they only have that coping resource and skill, they don't know any different if they've got too much momentum. They are going to choose the substance abuse, the substance, rather than an alternative way. Because alcohol and drugs alter the brain, the behavior, the feelings. And while it might provide temporary relief, numbing out, or feeling better, also causes stress and more problems in the moment, mid and long terms. Just take a moment to notice the breath. Is it on the chest? Is it on the belly? Is it short? Is it long? Breathe in. Breathe out. Allow the belly to rise and fall. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Another way that we could look at someone else's behaviour and justify why a parent might not love us, it could just be that they had a very stressful, distressing past and experience growing up. Perhaps there was no resources, famine, perhaps they went to war and they'd fight and they'd see horrible things and they struggle with those moments. Perhaps they never had any love, any relationship, any stable, healthy, balanced relationship. It's always been from a place of struggle, fight, survival. Seeing and witnessing horrible, horrendous things where they had to fight for their own survival. So they have only learned to survive, but not to cope, not to love, not to heal. And the brain has been programmed for survival only. And they might suffer from their traumas. And because they never had any experience of pro-social, healthy relationships, they don't know any better. And they are so consumed by their struggle and suffering. Experiences, memory, nightmares. They can't see a healthy, bigger picture. They only see the world in terms of fighting and survival. And anyone that doesn't get on their side is against them. And anyone that is different is an enemy. So they feel attacked. They want to survive at all costs because they have been trained to survive at all costs. And then we might feel anger and blame, the wars and the famine. And we could perhaps think that my father does not love me because he's been to war, because he had an extreme upbringing, because he doesn't know any better. And that perspective, while can elicit some feelings of anger towards wars, and knowing the impact that wars have on people for generations to come, can also elicit and soften the blow of feeling unloved because there's something wrong with me. But seeing that someone was struggling, they've been trained to fight. They had to fight to survive from a young age. So they don't know any better. And that feeling of anger can be towards the person, can be replaced with comprehension, empathy, compassion, and a wish that the person heals and has the love they never received or have, and that they can heal from their suffering and struggle. Just take a moment. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Going back to the first example, where if we might think that our parent does not love us because, for instance, another example similar to the first one would be, my father knows that I'm not his daughter, and that's why he hates me. So one could have feelings of anger for the unfairness and wanting to revenge by saying on their face, "You're not my father." But then one might feel worried and concerned that the pain would only trigger an anxiety attack or heart attack, and then feel so hurt that we might feel hurt that we've inflicted so much hurt and suffering on someone else's. And we might feel worried that if that, by saying those things, it could potentially kill them from heart pain. And then we might fear that we'll have to live with that guilt for the rest of our lives. So that might prevent us from saying nothing. And we might feel sad that we were not loved and wanted upon coming into this world. Or we were, but it was a betrayal. Or end up hurting someone else's feelings. However, as an adult, we can look at it that sometimes people have accidents. They're driven by the feelings of the moment. And the impulse, the biological impulse is stronger than the rational mind. And unfortunately, accidents do happen. However, while the person might struggle with feelings of anger and sadness and betrayal and rejection, there is also a possibility that the person could come to a place of understanding, of forgiveness, of acceptance, and even seeing the good, the positive, the silver lining. Close your eyes for a moment. Notice the heartbeat. Notice the throat. Notice the mouth and the teeth. Notice the belly. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. You could also have a parent who is not on their best behavior in terms of showing love and affection, or showing hate towards us because the parent was struggling with depression and mental health struggle, depression, addiction, anxiety, trauma. And while we might expect our parents to be there for us, to be the best examples, because we depend on them for survival, when we are young, when we are older, we understand that anyone can struggle with their mental health at some point in their life, even if they have a positive, perfect background. It's not unheard of, even if it's just in film, of someone that has a perfect background, the perfect family. They even meet the perfect partner and have the perfect children, and then tragedy strikes and they lose one of them, and they feel so sad and go into depression. And once they're in depression, they're not available to anyone else, not even themselves. So as an adult, we can understand that when someone is consumed by their own struggles and they're not fully able to look after themselves in the most balanced way, it's only harder to have the surplus capacity and energy to deal with someone else's in the best possible way. So instead of having a high expectation that a parent should behave a certain way and be perfect, we could look at it, they are just another human being, just older, that's it. With our own struggles, with our own strength and weakness. And as an adult, we can look that all humans do the best they can with the resources they have in each given moment. And yes, we might be able to do better, but at times we know better and we don't do better. Because what we know comes to mind when we are grounded, when we are rested, but when we are on a fight, flight, freeze mode, it is harder to remember our coping skills. When life gets very big and stressful, it's harder to keep the balance. And in order to feel good, we need to tick different boxes of having the balance between sleeping sufficiently and quality sleep. We tick all those boxes ourselves. Take a breath in. Breath out. Am I always balanced on my sleep? Do I get sufficient quality sleep? Do I organize my life in the best possible way so that I can have sufficient quality sleep? The answer is likely that some of the time, but not all of the time. Take a breath in and a breath out. And that is likely to be the same with our parents, because there are priorities, because there are struggles, there are things outside of our control that contribute and affect our sleep. And sleep is an important pillar to feel good. What about eating healthy and giving ourselves sufficient nourishment in order to feel good and be balanced and healthy and have healthy and balanced reactions and behaviors? We need to have regular meals and provide the body with the minerals and vitamins and nutrients the body needs to be healthy and balanced. Do we give that to ourselves? At times we might do, but it's likely that not all of the time. And the same goes to our parents. So when we recognize that we are not perfect, that we are human, and so is our parents, we can see more humanity in ourselves and them, and our expectation from expecting they should know better moves towards they did the best they could and they know. Breathe in. Breathe out. What about hydration? Am I perfect on providing my body with hydration daily? Sufficient amounts at the right times? Do my parents have this good habit? Another important pillar to feeling good and healthy and balanced. Chances again is some of the time, but not all of the time. What about quality social interactions? Do I have sufficient quality interactions for my needs? And the chances are sometimes, but not all of the time. What about my parents? Quality social interactions are an important pillar and a buffer through stress. What about our mental health? Do we sometimes struggle managing our emotions? Do I sometimes struggle managing my emotions? Do I feel anger, anxious, disappointment, sad? And do I always manage my thoughts and feelings in the best, healthy possible way? Chances are some of the time, but not all of the time. Have I done something that I'm not proud of? What about my parents? So if I can see the humanity in myself, then I should also expand that to my parents. Close the eyes, breathe in. Breathe out. So I give myself regular movement and exercise, healthy and balanced, so that I can feel the best I can and give my body what the body needs. Again, some of the time, but not all of the time. What about my parents? Do they balance? Do they prioritize? What about daylight and darkness and vitamin D and sunlight? Do I have all of those things in balance? Does my parents have all of those needs in balance? Again, we might find ourselves being similarly. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't, and the same for our parents. What about our hopes and dreams and ways of coping? Do we keep things in balance? Do we look after our health and prioritize physically, mentally, emotionally? Are we able to manage our dreams in a way that is manageable? What about when things become too much? Do we have the support? Are we able to drop some things and prioritize? Or is there any external pressures, like financial pressures? Was there any struggles, for instance, like of sleep? Close the eyes, relax for a moment. Notice the breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now, the way we perceive or assume that our parents don't love us, we could ask, and instead of an assumption, we are closer to the facts. However, when we ask, there's a possibility the person might tell some of the truth, but not all of the truth. There are defensiveness, there are attacks. Sometimes we're not aware of the reasons why we do something. Sometimes we are ashamed to admit certain things. Sometimes we have different values. If someone grew up with nothing, they might value financial security, they might value material things. If someone did not grow in a home of love, they might value the love and the quality interactions. If someone did not have an education, they might value the education. And the different values can compete. One might pursue one's goals and dreams to the detriment of losing other goals. Do you value business or family? Work or family? Money or health? What is more important? And we all have different values because we all have different needs, because we all have different experiences. And sometimes those values will compete and interfere with each other. Someone might value expressing their feelings, or someone might value not feeling anything, just being neutral. Don't feel the highs, but don't feel the lows. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. So we started this exercise to recognize that we might have a predominant way of thinking or automatically assuming that our parent or parents hate us or don't love us for a single reason. That could be another person. But also we've explored different perspectives. We could ask, or we could explore, what are the ways that we could interpret this behavior, this reaction. And the purpose is not trying to ignore reality, distort the facts, minimize the impact or the hurt, or even live in toxic positivity where we don't recognize the real impacts that something has on us. It's just simply an exercise to open our mind to different possibilities, different things that might have contributed. And when we look at it from different perspectives, we have access to different ways of thinking and different feelings. And while the best way is to ask and you get the real answer, people don't necessarily fully answer and say what they think, because they might not feel safe. And they might not want to share something that can be used as a weapon towards them in the future. Or there might be shame in admitting certain things. Or they might not even be consciously aware of it. So it's difficult to get to the full truth. When we ask, we are closer to the truth. But we're never fully closer to the full truth. But what exploring different alternatives gives us is different ways of looking at some things, so we have a broader perspective. And then instead of just being fixated on one answer or one cause, possible cause, we could look at it. Perhaps there are different contributions. And then we don't take the whole blame or see ourselves as the full victim. And we see it in a more rational way. Different things contribute. And gives us more compassion, more understanding, and releases off the hook, another person off the hook. At the end of the day, it's just life. And things happen. And in perspective to other people, we might have worse. But also, we might have it better. Comparing to other parents who might have it worse or might have it better. It is what it is. We can't change the past. But we can put it to rest and acknowledge there are different contributors. And people are doing the best they can in each given moment. And I just thought the little things that might happen on a daily basis, we could look at it. That's their perspective. That's their background, that's their experience, that's their feelings. I can understand, I can have compassion, I can wish love, I can wish well. And I can also protect myself by choosing healthy boundaries, by knowing when to say no and stop. And I can also choose to heal myself, to let go of the past and leave in the past. Take the lessons Take the goodness. Allow me to expand and see human beings beyond my own experience. And I can choose how to look at each given moment from a broader perspective. And I can wish my parents loving and healing, peace and well-being. And I can wish the same for me. Love and well-being, peace and healing. Close the eyes. I wish myself love and healing, peace and well-being. I wish my parents love and healing, peace and well-being. I forgive myself for not being perfect. And I forgive my parents for not being perfect. And I forgive the circumstances for not being perfect. I take the lessons and I let go of the hurt. I am peace. I am healed. I am whole. I am pure, perfect energy. I am pure, positive energy. And while I might not be perfect all of the time, I am perfectly incomplete. I choose to have compassion for my thoughts and feelings. I validate my thoughts and feelings. And I choose to have compassion for my parents' thoughts and feelings and experience. I choose to validate my thoughts and feelings and experience. And I choose to validate my parents' thoughts, feelings and experience. We can coexist in the same. That is their perspective, this is my perspective. And they're both valid. They struggled, I struggle, we all struggle. Everybody hurts sometimes. Everybody hurts sometimes. Everybody gets it wrong sometimes. I choose to contribute towards the healing, towards the change, towards moving towards the light of feeling whole again, the light of connecting to pure positive energy, free from struggle, free from trauma, free from hurt. I am free. I am free. I am free. And I free my parents. I let them be in peace. let them find their healing. And allow healing to come to me, to wash all over me. I allow the energy that creates worlds to heal me, to empower me, to support me, and to heal, empower, and support my parents. I am free to let them go. I no longer have a need to revisit this, to dream about this, to think about this. It is done. I take the lessons. Healing is possible. And we can choose to be pure positive energy in each given moment. To rise above our struggle and suffering. To make the better choice. The healthiest choice. We can either prepare to aid the hurt and suffering, or we can heal and transform and illuminate our lives with more compassion and love. And we use the forgiveness, keeping the lessons, but letting go everything else that no longer serves. I am free. I am complete. I am whole.